Hello everyone, I'm Professor Ethical. Today I want to teach you about Guild Wars 2 dungeon paths. We're going to break them down to find out which ones are best worthwhile doing and which ones are just so bad you're wasting your time and costing you gold at the end of the day. So let's jump into it. The first one that I want to jump in with is the story mode. Now, all of the story modes, it doesn't matter which dungeon you're doing, they're all pretty boring and they provide no real rewards. You get a little bit of loot and some silver at the end of it, but really it kind of sucks. And you get 0 tokens, which is the whole point of why you want to do dungeons in the first place. So story, every single story mode goes right into the bad category. They suck. The only reason to really do it is to unlock explorable modes on each of your characters, though you may not want to do that on every single character. They run quite often and you can always help out new people with it. But for dungeon tokens, gets a complete and utter 0. Next, I want to jump to the end and I want to talk about Arah. So Arah is down in ore. It can be locked behind the meta event. The personal story also ends with the story mode of Arah. So unless you're interested in the personal story, there's no point in doing that either. But Arah itself is quite long. You do get a higher percentage of gold rewards, but the tokens are the exact same. So I'm going to start with Arah path to the Mursat path. So throughout this path, you've got constant mines all over the ground that can instantly down you. You're going to have to go underwater to fight enemies and find your way around with very few markers indicating where to go. Each of the bosses that you have to encounter have unique boss mechanics, every single one of them. And every path of Arah has a boss fight of Gigantus Lupicus. And back in the day, this was really the pug killer. So most paths ended at Lupi. Now, Lupi is much easier to kill these days, but it can still cause some problems. But due to the length of time, the absolute maze that is the Arah dungeon, and the amount of things that you have to keep track of, Arah goes straight into the bad category. It's going to take you so much longer. And this is actually true for all of the Arah paths. None of them are worth doing at all, ever. Next, we've got the personal favorite of many people, which is Ascalonian Catacombs. Now, you will see this run more often than any other dungeon, and part of the reason for that is people really enjoy it. They've been running it for years, and you can actually glitch the paths and merge them into a single path. And while people do stand by that because it's faster, what you're missing out on is extra tokens. So you can merge the paths if you like, but personally I find it's kind of sucky to do that if you want tokens. Each of the paths require different mechanics to kill the final boss, and I'm not actually going to go into detail on this because you will find a lot of paths run for AC. But personally, I do believe that these mechanics are awkward to teach to pugs, and it can be a real pain. Merging it as well is a strategy used by only a few people. So overall, I would say Ascalonian Catacombs gets an okay rating. Some people may disagree with me on that, but I do think there are better dungeons, and as I go through, you'll understand why I put it there. The second dungeon in the game is Caudecus Manor. Now, Caudecus Manor is quite interesting because it all takes place within that one home and just the garden surrounding it. A lot of people really hate CM, and you won't see many people running this, but it is actually one of the better ones. For the rest of this video, I'm going to break down each of these paths, but starting with path number 1, the Asura path. You don't really have to pay attention to this one. There's nothing that stands out mechanic wise. You walk in, you kill, you move to the next room, boom, in and out easy. The Seraph path is a little bit different. When you go inside, you have to go upstairs, and when you go into one of the rooms, there's a boss in there, and there's these hidden spikes that will down you, and you have to throw pillows across the floor in order to kind of jump across and hit the boss. You know, the floor is lava kind of mini game, and that can be kind of annoying. Just before the end of the Seraph path, you also have to drop 5 kegs at once by a door to break through, and all the while enemies are stealing those kegs. So that can be tough or easy depending on how well the team is handling things. So I'm going to put the Seraph path in the okay category. The Butler path is awful. Everyone hates the Butler path, and you will probably only do it once and realize why. When you go into the basement, there's these rockets that start shooting at you, but you can't hit them with normal means. You need to use a special weapon to reflect the rockets back on them. There's tons of these rockets. Everyone misses, and it's a real pain. You'll get down by the rockets. The other players will be stuck in combat. You can't respawn until everyone dies. It just goes around and around, and it takes a very long time. It's really, really agitating for a lot of people. And directly after that room, there is a small corridor you have to go through that has more mines in it. And these mines are constantly spawning and blowing up. And you have to kill the boss at the other end of the room while this is happening. Once again, this is a lot easier than the rocket turret room, but it is just a pain in the ass. That's why the Butler path is going into the bad category. Twilight Arbor is the next dungeon up, and one of my personal favourites. This originally used to have 3 paths, and it was quite interlinked, but a couple of years ago they changed the 3rd path due to a glitch or something, and made it a level 80 path that is designed around the Aether Blades. So I'm just going to put that right in the bad category. It sucks, it takes a while, and it's really not interesting. And if you're here for tokens, you'd just be wasting your time. However, path number 1 and path number 2 are excellent. They're really, really fast. You can get both done in under 20 minutes. And that's, if you only did that every day, you would have so many tokens. Next up is, again, another fan favorite, the Citadel of Flames. And there's 3 paths in this. One of the more annoying things about COF is that the dungeon can be locked due to an event outside. So you won't always see this running, but people do run this quite often as well as AC. Personally, I've never understood the hype with COF. In Path 1, for instance, you have to defend a room while killing constantly respawning enemies. After that, there's a room with rolling fireballs. Now, people can blink through that, so or portal, which is handy. But that path ends with a 5-man capture. 4 people stand on triggers while the 5th person goes in and solos a mini boss. So it's not really a path that can be soloed. But overall, it's an easier path and one that people will do often. So I'm going to put that in the okay category. Next up, Path 2. Path 2 is Mag. He will give you loads of little odd jobs within this area. One of the first things that you have to do is run around a room and collect a load of fire bombs for him and bring them back. Some people can struggle with that a little bit. After that, you have to bring him across a lava pool, and you have to cool the lava all the while enemies are killing you. Pugs find this difficult as well. And then just before the end, you have to defend him from more respawning enemies, and some are invisible, some aren't. It's not particularly hard either, but it takes a while and it's not really that interesting. Now, not as long as Arah, but long enough. So that's why it's going into the okay category. The third path, you will rarely see people run because of one thing, and that is the exploding bombs. The path starts off with 3 torches that need to be lit at the same time, And again, with pugs, trying to get them to count at the same time is quite frustrating. All the while you'll be getting attacked by terror elementals, and the other players have to go attack the boss. So again, not an easily soloable dungeon path. After that is the exploding bombs, and if you don't have blink skills, teleport skills, jump skills, you're not going to be able to get past this. It's a really annoying mechanic. Very few people can get the timing right, and that's why people really avoid this path. On top of that, the boss at the end is also quite annoying, but if you can get past the bombs, you can get past that boss. Now, Honor of the Waves, or Hot Wings as it's called sometimes, is the Codan's underwater dungeon. A lot of people hate this purely for the underwater, but underwater combat in Guild Wars is really, really good. So path number 1 is the Butcher path. The first real boss you'll see is a troll that does a slam and can down people. Not too difficult. Following on from him, you're going to have to fight a bunch of enemies in a room and the boss standing on the stairs. Not too hard, the enemies die quite fast, and providing the boss is turned one way, the other 4 players can just pound on him, so it's not too difficult. After that, you have to go through a room with some ballistas pushing you back. Not too difficult either. After those ballistas, you have to run through a corridor where you're getting pushed back by a boss at the end. The timing is okay on this. You can hide in the sides and you'll get there. It's not too difficult. And the Butcher path ends with a boss that has 3 totems protecting him. You just break the totems, hit the boss. It's really good. It's not particularly fast, but there's no underwater, and I think it's a really good one if you just want to get tokens. Path number 2 is the Plunderer. This isn't really great, as you have to fight 2 ice elemental bosses, which can smack you around. After that, there's some Quaggan bosses, and defending a Norn, and he can hit you really hard as well. And at the end, you have to fight a boss underwater who can get glitched and caught in the scenery, effectively ending the run. So unfortunately, Path 2 gets bad just because of annoying bosses and annoying mechanics and a run-ending glitch. Path number 3, the Zealot path. You have to kill a few more totems along your way before finally reaching a boss that can turn into a werewolf. He hurts a little, but he's not too bad. After that, you're going to have to fight a boss that's got really strong knockback again. Again, not too hard. But the next area is a tunnel where you have to swim underwater past a bunch of fish that almost always one-shot people. And again, people hate underwater. So when you get through that room, you have to fight another boss who's underwater. So once again, it goes into the bad category. Partly because nobody wants to run it, but partly because the mechanics are really annoying. I'd really love to see an update to Honor of the Waves, because I quite enjoy underwater combat myself. Sorrow's Embrace is our next dungeon, and this one is one of my favourites to run, because if you can do 2 paths in about 15 to 20 minutes. You're looking at Path 1 and Path 3, and if you were to do just TA 2 paths and just SE 2 paths, you could have more than enough tokens every single day, and those alone I would highly recommend doing. Path 1, the Ferg path, doesn't have anything stand out. Run, kill boss, and the final boss has a really strong bodyguard, but if you ignore him and kill the boss, he disappears. So yeah, SE Path 1 always. SE Path 3 is a teeny tiny bit slower. You have to run across the bridge, kill some enemies, kill a boss, and then kill a clown car full of dredge that just keeps spawning. But you do have to wait for the respawn rate on the clown car as it dries away and comes back with more dredge. But nothing really stand out that will stop you from completing it. Unfortunately, Path 2 of Sorrow's Embrace is not very popular, mostly due to the length, not the difficulty. So at the start, you have to fight 5 bosses, one after the other, and while not too difficult, it is boring. After that, you have to protect an NPC, and there will just be constant waves of enemies that you have to kill. Eventually, the NPC will decide to open the door for you, but he walks so slowly that it'll probably be your birthday before you move on. In the next area, you're going to fight a boss quite similar to one of the fractals, where you have to use the environment to stun the boss so you can actually do damage to him. So that can be slow as well. After you kill him, you have to clear another room full of enemies, collect a bunch of ore for your friend, and hand them over. Then he'll open the next door. And finally, you have to run through a huge hallway full of enemies to get to the bosses. And they're annoying as well because you're going to have to kill both bosses at the same time. Otherwise, they're going to respawn with full health. So SE Path 2 is very long, very annoying, but due to the length, I absolutely would not play it. And last but not least, Crucible of Eternity. Now, Crucible of Eternity is extremely easy, but it can be locked due to map events, which is a shame. But it doesn't take that long to open back up again. The one thing that all of these paths have in common is that you will have to do a laser game at the beginning, where you have 2 people jump past lasers and 2 stay at the start, and you press all of the laser buttons together at the same time. If you're in a pub, this can be quite annoying, so try and do a countdown and hope that people do it. But thankfully this is at the beginning of the dungeon path, and once you get past that, the paths split. It does not matter which one you do, they are all super quick. Not as quick as TA or SE, but quick enough and relatively easy. So COE actually gets a great rating from me, because regardless of which one you do, so long as you can get past that laser, you're fine. You can get a ton of dungeon tokens. Originally, if you wanted specific gifts for legendary items, you would have to do specific dungeons, but thanks to the Steam release, they've changed how dungeons work, and now, no matter what dungeons you get, you will get a single currency for all of them. This is a huge quality of life improvement, and makes gearing some of the end game classes much easier. There's also an achievement called Dungeon Frequenter. If you do 8 completely unique paths, you will get 5 gold and an extra 150 tokens. This is excellent because you're going to be doing these dungeons anyway, so you may as well do 8 unique ones each time and get some extra gold in your pocket and some extra tokens. So the breakdown of this is that anything that's in the bad category, I would never, ever, ever do unless I was helping a friend or I was bored out of my mind. They're all doable, but the length of time, the mechanics, the lack of tokens sometimes, it's often not worth doing any of these personally. Anything that's in the okay category, you can do to sort of pad out your dungeon frequenter if you need to, or if someone offers it, yeah, jump in, why not? But anything in the great category, I would recommend trying to do these first before you do any of the others. So these are my dungeon picks for 2023 and beyond. I hope they are useful to you, and I hope you get tons of tokens, and I look forward to helping you in game soon.